We continue now at the top of Daf Nunam Beis Meseches Sukkah. This is Sukkah Daf 50b. The Gemara says, Itmar, it was learned the following Machlokas Amoraim, Rav Yehuda v'Ravena. It's a Machlokas, Rav Yehuda and Ravena. Chad Tani Shoeva. One learns in the Mishnah that it was called the Simchas Beis HaShoeva. V'chad Tani Chashuva. And one says it was called the Simchas Beis Chashuva. The Gemara says, Amar Marzutra says, Man detani shoeva lo mishtabish, uman detani chashuva lo mishtabish. The one who says it's shoeva, that's not a mistake, and the one who says chashuva, that's not a mistake. Man detani shoeva lo mishtabish. The one who says shoeva is not a mistake. Because the pasuk says, Usha'avtem mayim b'sasan. You draw the water with happiness. The rejoicing that was done was because of the drawing of the water. So it's Usha'avtem, that's shoeva. Uman detani chashuva, the one who says chashuva, that it was a significant celebration. So lo mishtabish, that's not a mistake either. The Amar of Nachman, because Rav Nachman says, mitzvah chashuva hi. This mitzvah of the Simchas Beis HaShoeva was a significant mitzvah. Uva misheches yimei bereishis. It came all the way from the times of creation. Rashi over here says, misheches yimei bereishis. The Amron La'el, we said earlier, shisin nivru misheches yimei bereishis l'kavel hanasachim, that the drain pipes of the Beis HaMikdash, they were created during the 6 days of creation in order to receive the libations. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Hachalil doches HaShabbos, the flute is docha Shabbos, divrei Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda, that's the opinion of Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda. The Chachamim say, Af Yom Tov eino docha. Not only is it not docha Shabbos, it's not even docha Yom Tov. And Amar Rav Yosef says, Machlokas b'shir shel karban. The whole Machlokas Tanoim over here is talking about the song that is said over the karban. The Rabbi Yossi savar ikar shira bekli va'avodahi v'doches haShabbos. Rabbi Yossi holds that the main mitzvah of the song is to be done with a musical instrument. It's considered an avodah and it's docha Shabbos. The Rabbanon savri, and the Rabbanon hold ikar shira bepeh. The main mitzvah of the song is to be sung by the person, is to be sung by the person's mouth. V'la'av avodah, it's not considered an avodah. V'yeina doches haShabbos, it's not docha Shabbos. Avol shir shel shoeva, but when it comes to the song at the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, Divrei HaKol Simcha, everyone agrees it's just an added happiness, an added Simcha. Ve'ena doches HaShabbos, certainly it is not docha Shabbos. And Rashi over here explains, B'shir shel karban, what is the song by the karban? B'chalil hamakel lifnei mizbeach b'shas nisach hayayin. This is talking about the flute that was played by the mizbeach when they would pour the wine libation. L'tamid shel shachar, when they would bring the karban tamid in the morning. V'nisach hayayin l'tamid shel ben arbaim. They did the same thing by the karban tamid that was brought in the afternoon. Sha'lavim omdim al duchanam. At that time, the Levim would stand. V'omrim shir, and they would sing a song. V'chalil makel lifneim, and they would also play the flute. They would not always play the flute every day, but on certain days they would play the flute. That's what it says in the Mishnah in Erchin. 12 days out of the year they would add the flute to the song. They would only say the song at the time of the nisach hayayin, of the libation of the wine, like it says over there. And that's the issue they're discussing over here. This flute, what was a docha? Was it docha Yom Tov? Was it docha Shabbos, etc.? And what's the machlokes? One opinion says ikar shira shekarban sibor ton shir min haTorah. The main doraisa requirement of singing by the karban sibor. Kedamrin b'Meseches Erchin mikam mikros. It's learned out from Psukim. In Erchin, v'savar Rabbi Yossi ikar hashir eino elim kein chalil maka im hashir. According to Rabbi Yossi, the real song is when you have the flute playing. V'chein kinoros and avolim, and you have whatever musical instruments are required. Hakol keminyan hamafurasham. It's all enumerated over there. But in any case, hilkach avodahi. Therefore, Rabbi Yossi holds it's an avodah. You're using musical instruments, that's required. V'chihechi detamid docha Shabbos. And therefore, since just like the karban tamid is docha Shabbos, so shir shalom nami docha Shabbos. Its required song, which requires the instruments, is also docha Shabbos. But the other opinion says no. Bepeh, the real mitzvah is just to sing vocally. Halavim omrim hashir dvar yom b'yom. The Levium just say the shir. Kagon laHashem aretz umaloa barishon. They say laHashem aretz on Sunday. Gadol Hashem umuhulo b'sheni. They have one on Monday. V'chein kulam, etc. Uv'Shabbos efshel lechalil. And now on Shabbos, when you can't use the flute, eino docha. It's not going to be docha. You can't use the flute. Shein kli shir mitzvah, because it's not really a mitzvah to use an instrument. The instrument is not required. Later on, everything will be learned out from Sukkah. Avol shir shel shoeva, but the song that is sung by the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, Shahaya kol halayla malos hayordos me'ezras Yisrael le'ezras nashim. They played this music all night on the stairs that went from the Ezras Yisrael down to the Ezras Nashim. Kedektanim v'asnisin v'alavim b'kinoros u'v'nevalim. Again, it says in the Mishnah, the various instruments the Levium used. Divrei hakol simcha yiseirei. Everyone agrees that's just an extra simcha. V'yeina min haTorah. It's not Doraisa. Elo l'chabev es hamitzvos v'lo dachi Shabbos. It's just to make the mitzvahs beloved, and it is not going to be docha Shabbos according to everybody. And the Gemara continues. Amar Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef says, "Minoa mina devahachi pligi." How can I show you that this is what they're actually arguing about? Meaning, Rabbi Yossi and the Rabbanan are arguing about this issue of ikar shira bekli or ikar shira beped. The Tanya, as we learned in the following brisa, kli shares shason shaletz. Let's say in general you have kli shares and you make it out of wood instead of metal. Rabbi Posel, Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda machshir. Rabbi says it's posel, and Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda says it's kosher. And ma'ila b'hakam iflagi. Aren't they arguing on this very issue? Man de machshir, the one who says it's kosher, meaning Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda, who says it's kosher, savar ikar shira bekli. He says that the main shira has to be done with musical instruments. V'yalfinan me'abuva de Moshe, and we learn out from the flute of Moshe Rabbeinu. There was a flute that was in the times of Moshe Rabbeinu, was made out of wood, and you see that this is a kli shares because ikar shira bekli. The mitzvah is to do the shira with musical instruments. So once you see that the wooden flute of Moshe Rabbeinu was made out of wood and it was a kli shares, you can learn out that all kli shares can be made out of wood. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda. Uman de puzzle savar, and the one who says it's puzzle, you can't make it out of wood. He holds ikar shira bepeh. That shira really, the real mitzvah is just to be sung vocally. V'lo yalfinan me'abuva de Moshe. So you can't learn anything out from the wooden flute of Moshe Rabbeinu because it wasn't a kli shares. The Gemara says, "Lo, no, not necessarily. That's not necessarily the machlokas over here between Rabbi and Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda. The kuli alma ikar shira bekli. It could be everybody agrees that the main mitzvah of shira is to be done with a vessel. The machlokas over here is, though, can you learn out kalim which could be made out of metal from something where it was impossible any other way? By the case of the flute of Moshe Rabbeinu, it would not have played the music properly if it had metal, and therefore was made out of wood. But that was an exception because there was no other possibility. Can we learn out now that other kalim can be made in that same fashion from wood from a vessel which had no other choice? Man de machshir savar, the one who says it's kosher to be made out of wood, don and efshar mishi efshar. We can learn out, even though it's possible to make it out of other material, you could still learn it out from the flute of Moshe Rabbeinu where it was impossible. Otherwise, all kli shares can be made out of wood. Oman de puzzle savar, the one who says it's puzzle holds lo don and efshar mishi efshar. You can't learn out something that's possible a different way from something that is impossible. Viba is saying, but the Gemara says, if you want, I could say another answer. The kuli alma, the ikar shira bepeh. Everybody really agrees that the main mitzvah is to be done vocally. So again, the musical instruments, the flute of Moshe Rabbeinu is not a kli shares. The ain done in efshar mishi efshar. And it also could be that you can't learn out something that's possible from something that's impossible. So what's the machlokas over here? V'hacha b'meilef menorah. Here what we're asking is, when we're learning out from the menorah to other kli shares, b'chlale uprate or b'ribuye umiyute kamiflagi. We're learning out from the menorah, do we use what's called klal uprat, the Gemara will explain, or do we use what's called riboy umiyut? There are two different ways of darshaning the Torah when the Torah has a general followed by a specific, followed again by a general. We call it klal uprat klal or riboy miyut. Riboy, and it makes a difference how you darshan. Rebbe Darish Klalu Prati. Rebbe Darshan's using the rules of Klalu Prat, and Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda Darish Ribuye Umiyute. Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda, he Darshan's using the rules of Ribuy and Miyut. Rebbe Darish Klalu Prati. Rebbe uses Klalu Prat. It works as follows. V'yasisa menoras. The pasuk talks about the menorah. It says you're going to make a menorah. Klal, that's general. Zahav tar. Then it says you make it out of pure gold. Prat, that's a specific. Miksha ta'asa ha-menorah. Then it says you're going to make the menorah a solid piece. Chazur klal. That's called a general. That's a klalu prat klal. When you have a klalu prat klal, iyata don ela ke'ein ha-prat. That's telling you that it has to be similar to the specific. Maha prat mefurish al mateches, just like the prat, just like the menorah has to be metal. Afkol shal mateches. It tells you everything has to be similar to the menorah in that regard, has to be made out of metal. In other words, we're really learning from the menorah. According to Rebbe, using klalu prat klal, we learn from the menorah that kli shares must be made out of metal. And Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda darish ribuye umiyute. Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda, he darshans ribuy and miyut. V'yasisa menoras riba. So v'yasisa menoras is a riba, is an inclusion. Zav tar miyet. Zav tar is an exclusion. And mikshatasa menorah chazav riba. Mikshatasa menorah is another inclusion. Riba umiyut v'riba. When you learn a riba, miyut, and riba hakol. There we really come to include anything. It can be made out of any material. My Rabbi Kol Mili, what's included? All material. You only exclude one thing. My Miyat, what's going to be excluded? Miyat shel cheres. You just exclude if it's made out of cheres, if it's made out of earthenware, out of clay, that's going to be a problem. Otherwise, you could make it out of wood, you could make it out of other materials. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rapapa says, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video, on Daf Nun Aleph, Amar Aleph.